All right, so let's move over to just chatting because I have a few things to kind of rattle around. I kind of want to play more AU than Chronicles. We'll save that for tomorrow. They might be adding additional costs in terms of customer support. So how does that work? Oh, or like the to communicate that stuff? Like the whole like are you talking about like expenses will go up to enforce that stuff or to encounter the sudden influx of customer complaints? Here's here's a big here's a big deep cut, fictitious, and I honestly think this is hard for me to comprehend, but even more so harder to express by the bigger companies. Say you make a very uh controversial decision, like attacking this situation with Netflix, right? The password sharing thing. The question is, a lot of times it's always about, hey, how much more money Netflix is going to make. But the phrasing of how much more money Netflix is going to make is used in the framework of how much money they're going to lose. But the thing is, I would like to challenge individuals to make an argument where they flip the script a little bit. It's how much less money Netflix is going to lose actively. So the idea is, yes, this is going to be tough because you can't measure what they haven't made yet. While in the meantime, most of the criticism comes with what they've currently make and then how that's going to be impacted by move. But in both cases, the mindset is trying to predict what happens when a controversial business decision is made. So but on the one hand, one side of these types of mindset is that the company is doing well. It's doing well enough that it it is not failing at the moment at its projections. That's kind of an inference that happens a lot out of convenience. So for example, someone would say, a controversial this password sharing thing goes into effect, right? And in a year, Netflix will report our revenues are still tanking. So what happens with the arguments? Like I told you so. It's all because of that one action. It's tanking. It's like, well, if you come from a mindset that Netflix isn't tanking already, right? Because they're making quote unquote on a magnitude of a lot of money. Like seven figures is a lot of money. But is that tanking or succeeding? Well, it's very difficult to determine that. However, when a company, or like say you're a business owner, and you are not tanking, so the first thing you think about is making a controversial change to your service. If you're not tanking, you're not scared of losing investment, you're not bleeding money or missing projections, the first thing you think of is to make a controversial business decision. I don't know. It would be awesome to be able to ask big business owners what their take on it. Would they take that risk to make a controversial business decision at the chance of increasing revenue if their company is already hitting the projections. Like, yes, we do agree, or I can accept that there are ventures that expand, like rapidly expand, to the point where the expansion could be too fast. And then what happens is the company collapses, right? The business ventures. But here's the thing. Those are few and far in between. Like, the bad actors, the bad apples in this group has become like the standard to promote outside business criticism. Like, you have this company, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, expand too quick, now it defaulted and went bankrupt. It's like, now somehow that perspective has become the basis of comparison. It's become like the gold standard of criticism. So when Netflix is doing this, oh yeah, they're probably doing well, and they're just trying to get in more into the cookie jars of customers. It's like, well, how much money are they losing on password sharing since Netflix establishment? I don't think I don't think the individuals who are criticizing these decisions are taking from the perspective, like, if you were the business owner and you know that your subscription is divided by a third, if not a fourth, that's money unearned, right? But to a consumer, that's irrelevant because they didn't earn it, so they can't lose what they didn't earn. But to a business owner, that's revenue potential. And that is synonymous with losing it in the first place. It's kind of like the D&D thing that was happening on the OGL. That's revenue on the table. It's prospective revenue. Because they didn't earn it doesn't necessarily mean they didn't lose it in the first place. So while critics and pro-consumer people, like people for the consumer, make arguments like, oh yeah, they're going to lose money from this action, somehow it's predicated on how much the company has already made, as opposed to how much the company could be making. So when the frame of mind is not the same as the frame of mind for the criticism, you're talking about how much they're going to lose. Well, you're saying how much they're going to lose compared to what they're already making, as opposed to using the same frame of mind, so not a double standard, where you're talking about how much they're going to lose from this action and how much they're going to make from their action, comparing it to what they were supposed to make, not what they have made. So it becomes a super complicated question of whether the decision is right or not, or like it's going to be profitable or not. And no, I don't have the answer. I'm not suggesting there's a way to figure this out, because I'm not an econ expert or any expert of this game. I just see that instead having the non-double standard mindset, it creates three variables that are unfathomably complicated, and somehow it is so easy for people to say if this is good or bad, or if this is pro consumer or pro business, like pro company. What I can say as someone who has no knowledge or like a lack of an understanding is that if a business is making a controversial decision, they are losing, or they're perceiving that their business is struggling. I would say that's a very reasonable suggestion, given a lack of transparency? Is it going to help mitigate loss? Is the intent of the business move? If it's a pro-consumer move, then the business is doing well. And the idea is it going to increase brand loyalty beyond its base? Is it going to expand its customer reach? So when people talk about controversial things versus non-controversial things, they selectively choose when it's convenient for their argument. So if it's a greed move, there's no distinction between whether the business is failing their investors or the business is succeeding in their investors. When it's a greed move, it's often generally associated with the businesses trying to make more than sufficient. So for example, this is a greed move, quote unquote. This is supposed to be on paper increase revenue. So inherently people are thinking already Netflix is in the good. Like Netflix is good. Like it's so good that they think they have the gall or the audacity to try to squeeze more money out of their customers when their business is doing really, really well. Because it's just like a business to want to squeeze more money when they're making enough money. And it would be lovely to interview some of these business people and ask them how often do they try to take risky, unpopular decisions to make more money when the business is doing well. It would be really wonderful to hear what they say. In my opinion, if I were just to apply logic with no form of expertise whatsoever, so there's a big disclaimer, if it ain't broke, I would not try to fix it or even make it run better when it comes to business decisions. It's so risky to try to squeeze something when your company's in the green. When your company starts declining is when you start executing your contingency plans. This is a very volatile digital world we live in now. So Netflix, without a doubt, this is just signaling that Netflix is having some really alarming declines, which is kind of ironic in its timing because it does feel like the economy is stabilizing to some extent. And there was strong chip sales and hardware's outlooks in recent months. The beginning of 2023 had looked quite a lot more optimistic for chip makers and like the technology sector. So it could. I don't want Netflix to charge more. Absolutely. But the thing is, I would, if I had to pick of not having Netflix anymore and Netflix charging more, that's a tough decision. Because the world the community has bad actors on both ends. So you want subscription prices to go down. Well, if Netflix can reach its bottom line in some other way and be able to push, they would be able to cut the price. So here's where the bottleneck is. Password sharing technically equivocates the subscription and helps them reach the bottom line while distributing the fees to those who can pay for it, right? But okay, well, what about those who can't pay for it? Well, they probably weren't paying for it in the first place. So what do you do with those? Those people who aren't paying for it and watching it is raising the bottom line the requirements to meet the bottom lines for Netflix. So if you really want to get down to nitty gritty, technically it's in the pragmatic right for a company to accuse a community, just like they accuse an organization collectively. Hey, well, you know what? There are data that we can show that maybe, like, I don't know what the data is, but a significant portion of you actually watch Netflix programming without paying anything. So no, the company, it's a double standard. The company doesn't have the right to call the mob out for bad actors in the mob, but the mob is free to summarize Netflix's practice as a unified front because they're an organization. But somehow the community doesn't. It is only conveniently a unified front when they're trying to criticize something, but it's not a unified front when they have bad actors. So it's filled with double standards. And I really hope, for me, I love so much of Netflix's funded projects that somehow maybe some magical world is going to be a win-win. Like, in some way in the future, there's going to be a compromise that I reach that's normalized where subscription cost goes down, even though if subscription cost goes up, it ultimately just takes money away from Netflix because more people, in my opinion, will be driven not to pay for Netflix and still consume their service. It's such a pragmatic truth that it's hard to ignore. So if Netflix is trying to jack up the subscriptions to think that they're going to make more money in the long run, I feel like it would do them a disservice to understand that they are also human beings who go home, pay subscriptions for other services, and know that they are capable of the same behavior. Where, hey, I'm not going to pay for this. This is overpriced. So all these people work at Netflix and probably have considered this type of outcome too. So if they're increasing subscriptions because it's quote unquote the objective way to make more money, we have forgotten that the people who work at Netflix also live in the same world where they pay for subscriptions and services. Are all the people in Netflix making enough money that they feel comfortable spending more and more for subscription services? I would take the bet that the answer is no. They don't want subscriptions to go up. Even if they're making six figures, I still don't think they would want to pay more for it. So the people running the company can appreciate that. Somehow, though, when a consumer critiques a business owner, that is lost. It just somehow lost. Like, you are a business owner now. You can no longer appreciate what it's like to constantly pay increasingly more subscription cost. It's like, well, let's hit some really bad actors, okay? On the one hand, the people who work for the company are more likely to pay for subscriptions in the first place, and the ones doing the critique are less likely to even pay for the subscription for a service they're consuming already at no cost to them. So if you're like using the same argument, but I don't think the companies are using that same argument. They're like, okay, the people who aren't going to pay for the sub, right? They're just going to consume for free, however whatever means. They're far gone. We can't reach them ever. So if we can't reach that, jacking up the price and eliminating password sharing, it's not directed towards that. It's not recruiting more sub. It's trying to compromise between, hey, we're bleeding, but how do we do something that won't make that the willing pool of people paying shrink. So to me, when a company has to make these decisions, I don't think they're expecting to win ever. I don't think they're winning. They're not being clever. Like, the insinuations of a consumer is that, oh yeah, they think they can milk me. They think they're so smart that they can force me to buy more. It's like, I don't think the companies think that. I actually think they're like, we're going to lose. How are we going to do this and not lose more than we're already losing? It's kind of weird, in my opinion, or at least I think it's counterintuitive, that somehow when you work for a company, you somehow stop understanding that people don't want to spend more money. Like somehow the human beings, when you join the company, you're a different kind of human being. You're a human being that only wants money and never consider the consequences of having to pay. I mean, those people go home. They still have to pay for things. They still use services that their company doesn't offer. But somehow they've been transformed. Now they're humans that have no appreciation for what a hard-earned dollar is. They no longer appreciate what it means to have your subscription that you pay monthly be $1 more. Here's here's my hot take. I actually think they become hyper aware. They are even more aware of this because they spend most of their life surrounded by these things. I mean, you could argue it becomes so normalized that they become numb to it, but that doesn't mean they're not continuously being exposed to it. Who is more likely to think about subscription costs in a bigger picture? Someone who works at a company that offers a subscription service, or someone who's just complaining that occasionally every month they think about the bill? No, it destroyed subscription sales, unfortunately. So I would love to believe that, Worm. Absolutely. It would be so wonderful if that's what the reality was. Yeah, I would agree with you. If that was the case, that would be awesome. I want to have the intuitive feeling of that too. Like, hey, oh, I like Netflix. We share Netflix. It's like, oh, I kind of feel guilty. It's a guilt-driven appeal. Like, hey, I've consumed so much. Now I'm willing to pay for it because I can. Regrettably, that's not the case. At the moment. Not for Netflix. Maybe for Disney Plus, HBO, perhaps. Maybe like Paramount Plus or something. But here's the deal, right? How do we know that? We don't. But Netflix could share that data. But guess what? There's a catch. If Netflix shares that data, their investors are going to leave. It's such a hard situation for a company. On the one hand, maybe you can appeal to sympathy and say, hey guys, you can share your account password, all right? But we want to tell you we are losing money. We don't make enough money. If they come out and share transparency about that, their investors are going to leave. And no, the majority of the money doesn't come from your subscribers. It comes from your investors. So on the one hand, like, oh, how do we shrink down then without our investor monies? Well, that sucks. So they're in a lose-lose situation. Companies are in a lose-lose situation. And it sucks, in my opinion. I think it sucks for everyone. I don't think anyone's winning, which it feels bad when you step back and think, oh yeah, we're trying to find this, but each group can't communicate with each group because there are too many groups involved and they all have their own goals in mind. So like, if Netflix was not a publicly traded company, it technically could reveal some things. However, a company that is trying to be honest, for example, a company that says, yo, hey, all right, we're going to do this solid. We'll let you share your accounts, but please, please consider subscribing like a Patreon, for example, or like a content creator site. Hey, I do all this stuff, it's free of charge. In good faith, feel free to support me. But this is a publicly traded company. So when they say, hey, give you any indication that they're kind of desperate or they're in need of funds, your investors are going to leave. Like, if I have shares in Netflix and Netflix comes out and say, hey, I just want to tell you guys, we're not going to enforce this rule because it's a really unpopular rule. Customers don't really like this. But since we only did this for this following reason, and you disclose, what would they have to disclose to encourage people? They would disclose that we do need more subs, or we need subs to be more expensive to meet a bottom line. For me as an investor, I would withdraw my money right away because the company is going to depreciate in value. Most investors will leave because this company isn't growing anymore. And right now, we don't know what happens when password sharing is not happening. Like, Netflix didn't go from no password sharing to password sharing and then back. So all we can know is password sharing existed, but subscriptions decreased. Until they enforce something and see if it change up and down, it's difficult to know if sharing your account did anything. In fact, it could not change at all, which still puts Netflix in a terrible position. Because once this is enforced, if it becomes official and nothing changed, Netflix is still in the negative. So it could just balance out. Like, the people who want to share will still continue to recruit new people to sub, but there are just likely more people who would just pirate Netflix. And that, I don't know, as a, I'm not a business executive, but that's a tough question. It's a really tough question. However, the one thing that's certain is not doing anything about it isn't going to rapidly change anything. So if they continue the password sharing, you could argue, though, maybe it has nothing to do with password sharing, right? You could make that argument. So a pro-consumer suggestion would be like, decrease your subscription rates and then more people will buy it. Well, let's think about that for a moment. Decreasing your subscription rates. Immediately, Netflix has to make up for all the current subscriptions. So here's the downside. The more existing subscriptions you have now, all that money has to be made up first before it even goes positive. So like, for example, hey, we're going to price cut $1 off of all the subscription tiers. Immediately, if you have a lot of subscribers, that's $1 for every existing subscriber. So you have to make all of that up in the number of people with new subscription before you even go positive from the change. So the bigger the company, the more subscription-based model it is, the bigger hit it has to take first. So the reason why I'm highlighting this mindset is you're comparing earning potential with earning potential. You're not comparing what they earn now with what they could earn. That's a double standard. That's not comparing the same metrics. Why immediately? Wouldn't the point be it's a bet on a long-term success? You're their decision is based on the short term. The long-term success is irrelevant to investors currently. You could try to convince investors, hey, we're going to take the hit. It is immediate though. The hit will always be immediate. Like when you cut the subscription, the next following year, the renewal, the revenue will tank by that amount. Like that is the immediate short term. It doesn't matter what the outlook is. You're suggesting in that year, it'll make up for it. But you have to convince your investors that somehow by magic of goodwill, people will be more willing to pay for an entirely new subscription instead of continuously password sharing a cheaper subscription. If that is not, if you think that's what's gonna happen, it's very difficult for me to say any different. That someone who's already business oriented, like calculating their sub costs, right, would ever voluntarily go like lowering the cost barrier and getting them to pay for something that they're not already enjoying without paying. I think that's naive, like very naive. Like would you, I think for every, would you cover the cost, right? So say they cut $1 off of the current subscription. So that 10% requires that there's, for every 10 existing subscriber, there will be a new subscriber to replace that 10% cut. That's how the math normalizes. So within the year of that change, you're asking your investors to believe us that within the long term, there will be, for every 10 subscribers, there will be one new subscriber that somehow decided they will pay for something that they're enjoying that they didn't pay for previously. I don't know about you, but even I can't see the upside for a customer who's willing to do that. And we have to remember, these customers still look at companies as a greedy enterprise. We're not talking about indie groups. We're not talking about the novelty of emotional good faith. I generally think that it's safe to say most people view companies in bad faith, not in good faith. So yeah, you could say Patreons, right? Like you have this humble content creator who's offering all this stuff, and then it makes the people want to appreciate them and pay for them. I don't think companies get the same goodwill. They do not get customers who buy in good faith. I could even ask you, when was the last time you criticized the company in good faith? This whole discussion, this whole mindset that I'm talking about is because, in my opinion, it's driven by the escalation of bad faith criticism. It's a agenda-fueled criticism. It's a company. It makes a lot of money. Therefore, I criticize it in bad faith. And when I mean bad faith, I don't mean like religion or anything. I'm talking about like the laws, like negotiating in bad faith or good faith. When you're negotiating in bad faith, it means that you're considering a lot of things, but really you've already made the decision of points that is in your favor. So for example, negotiating in bad faith would be something like, hey, your subscription costs are too high. Meanwhile, you're already promoting people to not pay for the subscription at all by using a VPN service host. Like you yourself is not negotiating in good faith. You're saying if your subscription is dropped by $1, I will pay for that subscription, but it's in poor faith because that person would probably likely just continue to use a free service because it's pragmatic. It takes a person who's pragmatic about business sense to criticize another entity or person about that business practice. Free service is still more preferable than voluntarily paying a lower sub. So you're arguing on behalf of a practice that you're not participating in. Negotiation in poor faith. Like, I would not tell someone that if someone asked me, hey, would you want Netflix to not charge for subscription? Heck yes. Would this be healthy for Netflix's business model? Heck no. Do you think you'll pay if you don't have to pay? No. I would not pay if I don't have to. Would I pay in good faith? That's unreliable. Like, I can't promise you I'll pay in good faith. And I can't promise you that I'll pay because everyone else is paying in good faith. What do a company do? I don't know. I don't really know. If you're sitting making this decision, how do you convince people to voluntarily spend their money? You might be thinking, make it really cheap. Okay. How cheap are we going? If you cut 50%, it means for every current sub, you would have to double the number of subscribers. Do you believe that for every good faith buyer, there will be 2 new good faith buyers? How cynical are you? Like, your cynicism is applied to the company, but somehow the consumers are saints. They're the same. It's the same pool of people. Just so happens that these people work for that company, and the consumers that you're representing are people excluding that company. I think it's very optimistic, and I would love to believe in it. Like, if I love a game, I would love to believe that the legacy of a company somehow makes people want to pre-order games more, or they want to purchase in good faith. Like, for example, if Netflix reduced subscription and people pledged that they will be able to get 1 more subscriber for every 5, that's the compromise. Because they know they will get it, and investors know they will land on it. And that's good. Or that's a win-win. Like, you negotiate it in good faith. You pledge you would buy a subscription if it gets cheaper. But there's no risk to the consumer. Only the company is assuming the risk. I would probably change the subscription benefit instead of changing the price. I'm not familiar with how Netflix works, never used it, but my assumption is that there's something off about it if literally half the internet is talking about it. What do you mean by off? It makes very reasonable sense since Netflix covers 70% of bandwidth. You're comparing it to like it's any it is off if you mean it's different, because Netflix commands an incredible market share. It is different. If you're treating it like it behaves like any other company, that's a very misunderstood understanding. It is off because it is different. So somehow you're making a criticism, and along with other people's making criticism, that Netflix is just like any other company. It isn't. I mean, you could make a fairly compelling argument. I could see you can kind of make a fairly compelling argument with some selective data to suggest that Netflix is like any other company. And it's not about you. So you're already pledging a subscription. So you say, I would probably change the subscription benefit. You are an existing subscription benefactor. What you're accounting for, you're suggesting more people are going to subscribe, but you're not part of that. There can't be a misunderstanding. I have no idea what Netflix even is apart from being in hosting. Well, you just made comments that are, well, then it's not. It's literally, that means you misunderstood. You're misunderstanding. You don't know anything about what Netflix is. So it is, in fact, de facto a misunderstanding. Like, why immediately? Wouldn't the point be? So the idea is, the realistic thing is, there isn't. You made a comment about company subscription services, and somehow you attribute it to Netflix. You could just say, I have no idea, but and that would be it. Um how could I say this? I got an example. I've never played this game before, but this game looks bad. It's like, well, that's a misunderstanding because most people actually find this game really good. And then it's like, oh, but that can't be a misunderstanding because I just drew an opinion based on non-experience. I'm attributing anything, I'm just throwing thoughts at you. I know, but I'm not. Now I'm talking about your word choice. I'm talking about word choice. You can misunderstand something when you have no idea about something. In fact, that's where misunderstanding comes from. Most of the time. So I'm saying just that sentiment. Like, misunderstanding comes from a lack of information about something. I'm not talking about whether what you said about Netflix is a misunderstanding. I'm just saying the logic behind, can you misunderstand something if you have no idea what it is? That's where most misunderstandings come from. It's an underappreciation of how much you understand. However, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about people's goodwill now, which is what you were inferring, right? If you like a product, you're more likely to spend money on it, right? So the thing about that euphemism is that if you like a product, you're buying a tangible product. Now we're talking about services. If you like a product, you will voluntarily buy a product with the service you already have without buying it. Would you do it? I mean, let's not even talk about assuming about other people. My answer is a resounding no, and I know how business works. Wait, what? So here's the situation that Netflix is being faced with. Okay? When they started offering a service, and let's put out some legacy. Netflix is one of the de facto companies that started selling services. So it's not a tangible good. It's a service, okay? When can you convince someone to pay for something that they already are using without paying for it? Like, what I mean is, can you convince someone to voluntarily pay for something that they already have, not paying for it? That's the problem that's facing Netflix right now. What you suggested about it the sharing account will encourage people to pay more or like voluntarily subscribe. I don't even know how you get to that conclusion. When people share accounts, they don't have to pay. There are very few people here. There I just don't how it would ever be reasonable to expect people to pay when their service doesn't change voluntarily. And now you're talking about millions of people. I wouldn't. And I'm going to be realistic about that. I mean, I don't account share. I mean, I don't even have a running Netflix subscription to be fair right now. I actually rotate Netflix subscriptions with my sub. So every like 4 or 5 months, I would subscribe to Netflix and watch it for that month. But if you don't have to pay to use the service, you're telling me that you can convince that person to pay anyways. In good faith. I don't know how they're gonna do it. If the general perception of company would be positive and catering to people, I would assume there'll be a huge influence talking about it and spreading the idea. That's just simply not true. That just doesn't happen. I just can't. Wow, that is no, that doesn't happen. Not for a publicly traded company. Name a company that has happened. Name a publicly traded company that has happened. Where the company, the vast majority of the community is already consuming that company's service for free and voluntarily because of perception that they would purchase it. You're talking about products. I agree with products. I totally agree with products. Like a tangible product. We're talking about a service here. I literally said it's just an idea earlier. You can ask how I explain how I see it. Okay, so here's the deal. I am asking because you formed an idea based on an idea that came from somewhere, right? So I'm asking you if there is where you get this idea. So if you're excusing yourself and say, I'm spitballing ideas without any reason to spitball the ideas, then how am I to share anything? You literally said is an idea earlier. That is an idea. An idea is built on observation. It's built on something. Or are you telling me that you call people stupid because you just feel like it's true? Like the idea is I want to be convinced that your idea it came from somewhere. So I guess it didn't come from anywhere. So I guess we'll just move on. Like I didn't say it actually happened. Like where are you getting your ideas? Do you just want to shoot something? Like is there a reason? Where did you come up with the idea? Like, you know, it would be a little bit more interesting, I guess, if there was an idea somewhere, like a company that loosely gave you that idea or something. The key word here, in my opinion, is assume, right? Like, I get it. You're assuming something. But it came from somewhere. I'm sure you're thinking about an influencer of some sort. I can name a few companies, but unfortunately they sell products. So like, for example, Raycon, Vessi, HelloFresh. Those are influencers who, they commission the influencers and the influencers uses those products. Actually, HelloFresh is the closest thing. It has a service, but actually the service subscription is providing a product. So I can probably support loosely what you're saying because the idea is coming from somewhere. However, I don't have a company where you're already using it at no cost. And it becomes, actually, I do have one. Dwarf Fortress. Dwarf Fortress would be the closest thing. It's a game. And I'm not sure you're familiar with Dwarf Fortress. But the game was free for everyone who helped develop it. Yeah, is WinRare here anymore? Well, it's kind of here, sort of. But it got supplanted by 7-Zip. And then now 7-Zip just got supplanted by just the in-house Microsoft, like Windows 11. But I don't think WinRare made money in the first place. Like, it's not a subscription service. I think it was a donation service? I'm pretty sure it was donation service. And it's not a publicly traded company, unfortunately. Yeah, I really can't think of it. Here's the thing, right? Like, what I'm trying to say is I want people to be generous with their money and be able to recognize that things cost money. But even I can't say that. Like, even I can't say I would pay $5 when I can pay 0. I don't know if if you can say that, then that's cool. I actually respect that quite a lot. Like, pay when you don't have to pay. That's pretty sweet, being able to do that. I just don't think companies have the luxury of that. Especially when they don't offer a tangible product. And what I mean by tangible is like, I can't play this game if I don't pay for it. People pay for Spotify when you listen to music on YouTube. That's just not the same, but without ads, I mean, I don't know how to listen to music on Spotify without ads. You think Spotify is increasing in popularity? Wait. So people pay for Spotify when you can listen to music on YouTube. YouTube and Spotify are two different companies. We're comparing Netflix with Netflix. So the comparison is, would you convince Spotify to reduce their subscription costs, expecting that the reduction in subscription costs would increase the number of subscribers? In both contexts, YouTube, listening to music on YouTube is still there. Would Spotify as a company expect more subscribers if they lowered the cost of their subs? And in both contexts, you still listen to music on YouTube. I have some. This is a little biased, but I do have some knowledge of Spotify's revenue source, like whatever is disclosed or what have you. However, I don't want to make it sound like like what I just said is insignificant, but in terms of Spotify's revenue source, it's kind of insignificant. However, it's just asking the mindset. Like, would Spotify reduce their subscription costs? Also, I don't know how Spotify works with password sharing. I actually think having a free competing service like YouTube Music, Netflix doesn't have that. Well, kind of. So Netflix's YouTube, right, is pirate websites. So yeah, if we're comparing that, people still pay for Netflix, even though you can just watch it for free. So the analogy is still the same. Yeah, I agree. It's a pretty apt analogy. Now you have to ask Spotify, if they decrease or increase their subscription costs, would it affect their bottom line? Would it increase or decrease their subscription count, knowing that YouTube is around? And Netflix, if they're reducing and increasing password sharing, even though you can watch Netflix programming through a pirated website, is it gonna effectively affect their subscriptions? I'm actually leaning towards it's not gonna change when they enact this. Who I'm criticizing is people who are insisting that it's a bad and a good thing. Like, on both sides. Like, one side would say, oh, this is good because Netflix needs more money, it's struggling. And then the other one's like, oh, this is bad because Netflix is going to lose business and it's unpopular. I'm actually leaning towards it's not going to change significantly. And it's like Spotify. If Spotify increases their subscription by a little bit, or decrease, or remove account sharing, I don't know if that's a thing, YouTube music on YouTube still exists. So it may not significantly increase. The alternative is the critics that are saying maybe it's not account sharing that is driving Netflix's loss. You see what I mean? Like, what if it's not even any of that? So we have to step back and look at a bigger picture. I'm leaning towards it's not even anything that we've discussed so far. By taking a further step back. However, what is it? It would be awesome to hear someone who's like really good with business make a compelling argument of what this is, instead of all I've been seeing are like for the Netflix thing. Basically, the only thing YouTube feeds me are emotional arguments, like people who say like I don't have time to pay for this and I don't have to. So if that's true, then it's going to be difficult to convince anyone to pay for something they're not paying for anyways. So yeah, personally I would pay for individual shows or films, but something tells me that's not going to work well for a company. Guess what, Worm? You can do that on Amazon, and it did not work. You can still do that on Amazon. Amazon got your back. Um, well, it still works. It brings in money, but here's the thing: Amazon brings in so much more. Uh, doing the Amazon Prime thing. Like for example, when you go on Amazon, you can pay for a movie, and you can pay for a show, right? But here's the, this is bad. This is not exactly the same because they no longer give the physical media, and it's also renting, right? So you're still renting. Um, there might be, you can still buy the stuff. Did my message get sent twice? I think I'm no, you're not lagging. You don't got sent once. So here's the thing. Amazon has been doing that for a while now, but the revenue source just doesn't count those purchases. It's so, I'm not saying I can explain why, right? Worm, I'm not saying I can explain why. I just know that's what the numbers suggest. So, is it true for me? It is. For whatever reason, I don't buy the shows or the films. I just rotate them. So, like, I'm an Amazon Prime member, right? Amazon Prime is also a service that includes shows, films on a rotating basis. But every time you click on the show or the movie or something, you have the option of owning the thing or like owning a copy of the thing for a specific price. And you might be thinking, "No, you know, Maku, you're just weird. You don't even show me that behavior. I buy Steam DRMs." So, for whatever reason, when it came to shows and films, which Netflix operates in, I cater to a subscription base thing. But when it comes to like games, I still behave in the behavior that you're suggesting. Like I buy and pay for the individual. Like I'm not on Xbox Game Pass, for example, which would be the counter to how I'm behaving on Steam. So for whatever reason, I'm not saying I can explain this well enough. I think it's a bit of more of a precedence and a founder's effect, like what came first kind of thing. But I buy DRM on Steam. I buy services when it comes to content oriented stuff, like shows and films. And what is the biggest, arguably the biggest subscription service on this planet? It's Amazon. It's not Netflix and Disney Plus and stuff. Netflix has the highest bandwidth consumption for a specific outlet, but the subscription base is Amazon without hesitant. But even the unpopular if we're making an argument that subscription is just is buying stuff a compelling thing. Unfortunately, I think Amazon didn't prove that, unfortunately. Like, I don't mind buying stuff if we can own it, I guess. Would I consume as much media that way? The answer is probably no. Yeah. Like, I've consumed 10 to 20 times more in a monthly basis than I have purchasing one product. Like, for video games, like, let's consider Steam, right? Somewhere in the back of my head, if I could buy a subscription to Steam's library I would probably do that. And if you're a content creator or a media consumption or you're making critiques, I would probably still do that. I would pay a monthly subscription to have access to Steam's catalog. That would be unbelievably a higher return on investment. So I know a lot of people make the argument that owning something is great. Owning something means you get to keep it forever. Owning something means like this is yours forever kind of thing. Like you get a piece of the pie. However, when it comes to pragmatism, money's worth. Subs, like subscription-based service, are the new trend, and without a doubt, as much as people love to say, like, you know, there are the people who would say I love to buy all the stuff that I use. It's like that's great. It's very respectful. If I were to do that for the films and the movies I would pay for, what is a reasonable price that equates to the subscription that I'm using? I can give you an example in my sense in hardcore numbers, or like just numbers that I keep track of myself. One Netflix subscription, which is 13 US dollars. I'm going to say roughly 13 US dollars, okay? For a month. Each show or movie that's owned by Netflix or have it's shown by Netflix would have to cost $1 each for me to own forever to match me using it. Now here's the thing, what about rewatch value? It's like, okay, so let's add the rewatch value. How often will I rewatch something? Let's say through my lifetime, every 10 years, I will rewatch something, okay? So let's say I have 30 years of life left. Let's triple that. So every film and movie and show will have to normalize to $4 a pop. There isn't, so now, how are the films and the movie going to cut their prices to match? And the number is probably even smaller for power people, like people who actually watch every day and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know how they would do it. So then it would become the filmmakers and the show makers deal, like how they cut deals with Netflix, right? Cut deals with Amazon. So it's still Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus's problem because now they have to negotiate. Hey, we want to start a platform where you have to sell DRM to compete with subscription-based services. What are we asking for? Well, I know you guys are selling $20 a pop for a movie and $20 a pop a season for a show. How can we get you to sell them for $4? What is that? A 75% price decrease? That's some negotiating right there. And I don't even know what, like, for me, I don't know what it costs to like publish, what the royalty cost is and all that stuff. But I consume so much media content now that it's difficult for me to rationalize purchasing something, even for ownership. Like Twitch. Do you think? Oh, this is a great question. do you think Twitch subscription, here's a good one. Twitch is a good example. So I don't know if you know, but you can subscribe to Twitch, right? Or you can subscribe to a streamer through Twitch. And to argue for you, like for your thing about the goodwill thing, right? When someone subscribe, they want to subscribe not obligatorily to the streamer. So like, for example, if I can convince you that I make your life better or maybe more stressful, and you love the stress and being exhausted and being personally attacked, that you love it so much that somehow I convince you to subscribe to me, right? That's cool. And I'm the company. I'm Netflix's position. So how? So, okay. So do I have to increase my value, or that I make sure like if I increase my value, I will attract more people to subscribe to, like, I wouldn't change anything, right? I would just keep upping my value in content, and then more people will subscribe to me. That model works, right? For a business owner, it works. You can translate that. Now, what happens at the company level? Well, first of all, everyone thinks you're greedy, right? You're a greedy company that's already making a lot of money. How does that perception change? Well, you're making enough money. I don't need to subscribe to you. But that's reducting. We're reducing. So that was a tangent. I didn't know where I was going with that. But here's the thing. You can subscribe to Twitch too. I don't know if you're familiar with Twitch, but Twitch has a subscription service. It's called Twitch Turbo. And here's the thing. You might be saying, oh, but if I subscribe to Twitch, I'm not supporting the streamer. Well, actually, here's the deal. When you subscribe to Twitch Turbo, right? For Turbo, when you're watching a streamer who run ads, right? Who has ads everywhere, Twitch Turbo removes those ads. And guess what? The ads that you don't see contribute to the streamer. So you are, for one subscription to Twitch, any streamer you watch from now on, like if every streamer somehow decided, hey, I'm gonna run ads, and you subscribe to Twitch for one subscription, you can literally be helping the streamer by subscribing to Twitch. How popular do you think that model was? And this model actually existed since Twitch became Twitch. It is nowhere near as popular. And yet, it would circumvent so many things. Like having streamers feel guilty about running ads, how ads can drive wedges, and so why isn't this a big thing? I don't know. I actually really don't know. It's crazy though. It's kind of humorous, because when you subscribe to Twitch and have Twitch Turbo, it's subscription for every single streamer. Like that was the original model, Worm. It was the original model. Like you subscribe to Twitch Turbo, you watch every single streamer by bypassing their ads. And anytime an ad comes up, it goes into their revenue source. And Twitch Turbo represents like 2%. You represent two. And also, here's the big kicker, right? Twitch is a free service. So people like Twitch. I think people like Twitch and they use Twitch. Did it increase Twitch's subscriptions? It did not. It disproportionately actually decreased Twitch's subscriptions. Because more people started using Twitch and less of them are subscribers. So over time, Twitch has to support more and more people who use their service and make less and less money to cover the expenses. Like what I mean is they ultimately end up making less money because they have to spend more money to support the increase in popularity, but no monetary return. Now, here's the caveat though. Luckily, what took place for Twitch is that streamers were able to offset that. They were able to like create, subscriptions. So what did Twitch do? They took a cut of it. Now, what's the argument here? Well, the argument is if Twitch stops taking subscription cuts from content creators, then there will be more content creators willing to subscribe and be on Twitch. Well, here's the thing. What's being assumed by the consumer is that it costs Twitch nothing to become more popular. It does cost something. It costs a lot of things. First of all, it costs ad money. So the content creators don't run ads. They don't want to run ads. It ruins the experience. Yet they want the full cut of subscriptions. But every time they attract more people and more people onto the platform, Amazon has to cover over the expense of running Twitch to support it. So if Twitch lags, if Twitch don't have customer service behind the table, DMCA, appeals, customer service, all that is on Twitch. And what was the most recent, very unpopular decision that Twitch made? Everyone is 50-50 split. No special treatment for big partners. Well, I mean, every time Twitch gets more popular, the stuff doesn't scale up. It's if they take away the cut, right? So it's kind of interesting. I would love to see a separate Twitch service where you're subscribing to Twitch and then all the content creators don't have ad control and be like YouTube, the YouTube model. Ads are just run based on Twitch's autonomy, and Twitch can promise it won't take any cut, and the subscription goes straight to Twitch. And the content creator gets paid for the ads that are supposed to run. If they run, they get impressions from people who aren't paying a subscription. If not, they subscribe to Twitch. And guess what? The viewer pays less. They subscribe to Twitch. It gives them full non-ad access to every single content creator, but they choose not to, which forwards the position of, yes, you can get people to buy things out of good faith, but it's not good faith for a company. It's good faith for a person you care about, like it's someone that's internalized. Companies do not have that leeway in mindset. Like, hey, I love Twitch. I use Twitch a lot. Let me buy a subscription to Twitch. It has been free for the longest time ever. It's a better value proposition too. I'm kind of curious what the data is now. You can tell a Twitch Turbo guy because it has like a battery symbol next to their name. So if you ever see a battery, like a purple battery symbol with a lightning bolt in it, that's a Twitch Turbo. subscriber. And what happens is it allows most content creators to run ads with no consequence. Like if you run ads, actually if you have like 10 Twitch Turbo people, it doesn't matter how many ads you run. Those ads go towards the content creator. And the Twitch Turbo members don't actually see them. Interesting is my perception of Twitch sub is biased because Twitch doesn't run ads almost never for your reach. Oh, wait, is that true? Yo, that's kind of cool. I'm sorry, this is really interesting. Is there like something about your region that doesn't allow subliminal advertising or something? That's so... I haven't ever heard of this. Or like, I haven't gotten the chance to talk to someone who belong to a region like that. That's so interesting. Huh. So, I'll answer another thing that some people... Last ad I remember in League Show, that was a while ago. Oh, and was it in literally the League Show? Like the League Show itself was broadcasting it and not Twitch itself? Or sometimes professional organizations, they broadcast the thing like through their feed as opposed to like this ad supports League on from Twitch and going through Twitch or something. Here's another thing though. And it's the YouTube Spotify thing example that you got where back in the day, right? Some people may argue, oh, I subscribe to someone because they have great emotes. Like, you know, you buy for the emotes or you buy for the badges or something. And that was a time when emotes are just the subscription, the motivation to subscribe for emotes is to unlock more emotes so that you can sell more. It's a product. It's a product that's limited and gated so that it supports Twitch, right? It supports Twitch, the platform, indirectly as well. Well, a YouTube came along. 7TV, BTTV, you know, Franker Z, and this dialogue slowly just faded away. So the goodwill of people is left over. So now subscription is specifically based on goodwill. So what happened? Well, the content creators didn't change. But the subscription, the total number of subscription actually tanked. Yeah, that's how strong good faith is. And I don't think good faith in the word that the law is like I'm gonna stop using good and bad. I'm gonna say pragmatic spending is a must. I actually encourage people to do that at the expense of knowing that it hurts Twitch's bottom line and my bottom line. So when you're acting in a charitable way, it doesn't encourage more charitable emotions. It encourages opportunism. So this might sound cynical and it might make humans sound gross, but there's a cake and eat it situation here. When you're pragmatic and you're frugal, you happen to lean towards being frugal in most cases. Like if someone is really concerned about the cost of things, the likelihood that they'll spend money on good faith to support someone is also lower. Like it goes hand in hand. So while I could say it's a nice gesture to spend money on someone without return, right? No return in investment. I can't say that to anyone because I don't even expect it myself, like of that myself, like wholeheartedly. And because I understand this reality of myself being like a frugal person who talk about money a lot and money matters and stuff like that, I can understand that it is difficult for me to do that, at least. Um, and I wouldn't bank on it being something that's reflective of other people who are already considering this money things. So all the people who are concerned and are going to leave Netflix, for example, after this, I don't think they were going to stay in the first place. Like, it was already tenuous. Those people who are using Netflix now and paying for Netflix are more than likely going to use Netflix and pay for Netflix. Like, the vast majority. It's a service thing. So, um, to cater to those people who would rather pay nothing for a service at the expense of everyone else who's willing to pay for it, I think that's a double whammy too. So like asking Spotify people that, hey, how do you feel if we just make Spotify free for those people who didn't support us and you guys keep paying us? I, that would be a situation in which the company would win, like would win with no cost, no investment or anything, no additional investment. Basically, hey, I want to offer Spotify with ads for free, but those who don't want ads, you pay for the sub. We have those models. That's the compromise. So like you can watch ads and have the service for free. We forgot how like if you give a service for free and there are people that are already paying for the service, they will leave for being ripped off too. Yeah, I know how that sounds. You're like, wait a minute, but won't most people feel like it's a win-win situation where like if I paid $3 to pay for a service that I like, and then other people can get it for free, that's good. That's awesome. It's like, no, I would want to not pay for it as well. So the good faith is gone. It's negotiation on bad faith. Like when if Spotify suddenly becomes free, how many people do you think are going to continue supporting Spotify by paying for their subscription? There's going to be a dramatic drop in subscriptions. As much as I want humans to be super carefree about their money, like and really benevolent, pragmatism is like really high. Money's tight. If World of Warcraft suddenly goes free to play, would anyone continue to pay Warcraft's subscription on good faith? I don't know, actually. I believe there would be a significant number of people, right? Like, we're not saying all of them are going to leave and all of them are not going to leave, but, you know, just to entertain the idea, what is a realistic number? I'm going to say, and obviously, I don't have data for this. I can't think of a game that has done this, like the reverse, where... Oh, wait. I can think of a game that did this. Oh no, I can't think of a game. Never mind. I can't think of a game that did this. But I can tell you the closest thing that's not quite the same. Any game that had a monthly service that went free to play and people were willing to pay for microtransactions. Unanimously, 7 out of 10 people do not pay for anything after it goes free to play. So like a good example is probably Destiny 2. That's a good example. But Destiny 2 is not quite it because bruh, it doesn't load anything even on audio only, so I guess I have to leave. Oh, okay. Well, anyways, I don't even know who I'm talking to be honest. I'm looking for I mean overall, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I actually think that Netflix's change is not going to actually, it's something else. I don't think I think they're gonna lose some, gain some here and there, but I don't think Netflix's bottom line is gonna improve or get worse when they do IP locking for account sharing. Oh, I ranted long enough, and seeing that I was just talking to specifically at someone a little bit, I'm gonna call it a day. All right. Well, anyways, take care, stay safe. I'll see maybe someone tomorrow. All right, take care.